reality. And what he says here is that while a person is alive, they have some hope. Now, why is it that they have hope? Because they know that they're going to die. Well, how does that give a person hope? Well, in a couple of ways. Number one, the knowledge that you are going to die should grant you humility. It should grant you humility. This is the meaning of his statement. A live dog is better than a dead lion. Here's what he means. The dead lion is the arrogant foolishness that a person will go their entire life thinking that they are invincible. So there are some people, some young people, who don't think about death at all. And why is it that you don't think about death? Because you don't think this consciously, because if I were to point it out and you were to think about it consciously, you'd be like, oh, I guess that's dumb. But you function like you're invincible. You live your life, you think about your life, or you don't think about your life from the perspective of a person who just thinks that how things are for you today is just going to go on and on and on and on. Now, one of the things that happens as you get older is you start to realize that doesn't happen. Your body starts wearing down. Okay, and all of you like older folks, you laugh at me because I'm only 36, and you're like, oh, you're just like a young buck. And it's like, okay, fine, fair enough. But I am old enough to draw a distinction between 36 and 19. Like, I can still do many things that I want to do. I just pay for them sooner and longer. And you just know, like, life isn't going to actually go on how it goes on. But in the foolishness of youth, we sort of think we're invincible. Now, Solomon, he's thinking about the person who has that kind of arrogance, but it just goes on and on. They never contemplate the reality of their death. And so what happens is they think of themselves as a lion, and then they die. And now what are you? You're a dead lion. And he says, meanwhile, a person who reflects on their death, who knows that someday I'm going to die, they're humble. It humbles them. I'm no lion. A German shepherd maybe, but not a lion. Humble. A live dog is better than a dead lion. A person who thinks about the day of their death knows that he is not immortal. He is not invincible. And he is not, in the grand scheme of things, according to this cosmos, all that important. There's a song, one of my favorite bands is a band called Need to Breathe, and they have a song called Dreams. And in this song, there's this line that I have pondered. They say, then I fell down hard. They talk about their life. Then I fell down hard, but the falling saved me. I'm only half the man I was when I was 20. And I thought about, that's super weird, because on my first shallow part, I don't think I'm half the man I was when I was 20. Because when I was 20, I was a foolish idiot, lacking discipline, lacking responsibility, lacking sacrifice, right? And so now as a 36, I'm like, I could dominate 20-year-old Brian in like pretty much any sphere. So I think I'm not half the man. Now here's what I think is the meaning. When I was 20 years old, I had a massively overinflated sense of my strength, of my competency, of my significance. And as I've gotten older, this overinflated sense, it's not there. I'm not that strong. I'm not that smart. I'm not that important. I'm only half the man that I was in my mind then. Now, of course, the irony of that is, what does that humility do for you? It makes you a much greater person. It makes you a much greater person. The irony of this, in the reality that we can understand in our humility, we're only half of the delusional fantasy that we thought we are in our arrogance. But the second that you have the humility to have self-awareness of just how much you really are, you become greater. Right? So young people, you are not nearly as impressive as you think you are. Not even close. But here's the good news. The second that you understand that, you will become impressive. There was a great college basketball coach, John Wooden, if you're familiar. Basketball coach at UCLA. He used to say this. He said it to Bill Walton, actually. So Bill Walton took this to his old years. He says, it's what you learn after you know it all that counts. That's the concept. You get that? A live dog is better than a dead lion. And so the knowledge of your death will give you hope because it will first give you humility. To think about, I am not immortal. This body of mine will deteriorate. Probably this mind of mine will deteriorate. The capacities that I have as a young man will not be there forever. And someday I will die. And what should that do? Well, the very first thing it should do is give me humility.